Welcome to Unbound, the podcast with Beth Curry, author, storyteller, and survivor. This is where books meet real life, where Beth reads chapters from her work and breaks free from the traditional audiobook format, diving deeper into the personal experiences, lessons, and liberation behind every page. Nothing is off limits. Let's get unbound.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unbound Season 2, The Weight of Truth. I'm Beth Curry, and today I'm going to talk about something that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, including myself, and that is the scale. That little device sitting in your bathroom that you either obsess over or completely avoid. I totally get it. This is Chapter 8 in the book. The scale doesn't lie, but I sure as hell did. Let me tell you about the day I finally stepped on a scale after years of avoiding them like they were radioactive. I am going to have to brace myself for this story. I had convinced myself that scales were tools of the diet culture curse. I had bought into the body positive idea that numbers were just social constructs designed to make women hate themselves. The pull of gravity will not define me. I had trained myself to look away when doctors weighed me, to refuse to hear the number, to make them write it down without telling me what it said. Except for that one time when I was like 23 months pregnant with my 9-pound baby boy and clocked in at a solid 318. The day I actually looked, nobody was proud. I thought I was being enlightened. I thought I was protecting my mental health. I thought I was practicing self-love. But really, I was just lying to myself about reality. You know, reality exists whether you acknowledge it or not. And my reality at that time was that I weighed just under 400 pounds, whether I knew that number or not. My body was carrying that weight whether I stepped on a scale or not. My joints were struggling with that load whether I wanted to admit it or not. Every step I took, I swore I could hear them whisper screaming, "We were promised yoga, not sumo training." The scale wasn't making me fat. The scale was just reporting information about what I had already done to my body. But for years, I had convinced myself that the scale was the enemy. I had an entire mental framework built around why I didn't need to know my weight. Numbers don't define me. I can tell how I feel without a scale. Scales don't measure health. My worth isn't determined by what I weigh. All of these thoughts felt so enlightened, so body positive, so evolved, and some of them were even true. My worth as a human being wasn't determined by what I weighed. Numbers alone don't tell the whole story about my health. But here's what I was really doing. I was using these half-truths to avoid confronting the full truth about what I had done to my body. Let me show you how déjà vu was working in my scale-avoiding days. The fact: I hadn't weighed myself in years. My thought: I don't need to know my weight because it doesn't define me. How that thought made me feel? Enlightened, liberated, like I was too evolved to care about something as shallow as a number. My actions: I continued eating the same way, avoiding mirrors, buying clothes online so I didn't have to see myself in fitting room mirrors, making doctors write down my weight without telling me. The result? I stayed in complete denial about the reality of my situation while pretending it was self-love. The day I finally stepped on a scale, the day after my light bulb moment, I realized how much mental energy I had been spending on avoiding information. Information that could have helped me make better decisions. Information that could have served as a wake-up call years earlier. Information that was just sitting there, neutral and factual, waiting for me to be brave enough to look at it. The scale read 394 pounds. Well, I assumed that, as my old-fashioned scale only went up to 350 pounds and bypassed that right up to a cool 44 pounds. I knew I wasn't 44 pounds. And you know what happened when I saw that number, even though it read less than 50 pounds? The world didn't end. I didn't spontaneously combust from shame. My worth as a human being didn't evaporate. But I did have to confront the reality of what I had done to myself. I had to admit that my body positive mantras hadn't actually changed the fact that I was slowly killing myself. I had to acknowledge that avoiding the scale hadn't made me any healthier or happier. It had just made me ignorant. Here's what I learned. The scale is just a tool. Like any tool, it can be used in harmful ways or helpful ways. You can use a hammer to build a house or to destroy one. You can use a scale to torture yourself with daily obsession or to give yourself objective information about your progress. The scale itself isn't the problem. Your thoughts about what the scale means, that's where the drama lives. Most of the scale drama people experience comes from these déjà vu patterns. The fact, the scale shows a number. Common harmful thoughts. I'm disgusting. This isn't fair. Nothing works for me. I'm a failure. Feelings from those thoughts. Shame, frustration, hopelessness. Actions from those feelings. Emotional eating, giving up, avoiding the scale for months. Results, weight stays the same or goes up, reinforcing the harmful thoughts. But you can choose different thoughts about the exact same number. The fact, the scale shows a number. Helpful thoughts. This is just information. I'm learning what works for my body. Weight fluctuates naturally. I'm committed to my long-term goals regardless of daily changes. Consistency is key. Feelings from those thoughts? Calm, determined, in control. Actions from those feelings? Continue with your plan. Make adjustments if needed. Use the information to learn. Results? Steady progress towards your goals. The number on the scale is just a fact. What you make that number mean about you, your worth, your progress, your future, that's all in your head. I spent years lying to myself about my weight in different ways. I told myself I was probably around 250 when I was pushing 400. I told myself that feeling winded after walking upstairs was just because I was out of shape, not because I was carrying an extra 200 pounds. I told myself that avoiding certain activities was about not enjoying them, not about being too heavy to do them comfortably. I told myself that buying clothes in a size 4X was just because sizes run small these days. I told myself that the scale was the problem, not my relationship with food. Every one of these lies felt more comfortable than the truth. But comfort built on lies isn't actually comfortable. It's just postponed discomfort with interest. The truth might hurt for a moment, but lies hurt for years. When I finally got honest about my weight, everything changed. Not because the number on the scale had magical powers, but because I stopped using mental energy to avoid reality and started using that energy to change reality. The scale became my reality check, not my judge, not my source of self-worth, not my daily emotional roller coaster, just my reality check. Some days it showed progress. Some days it showed fluctuations. Some days it showed setbacks. But every day it showed me information I could use to make better decisions. And over the course of losing more than 200 pounds, that information became invaluable. I learned how my body responded to different foods, different exercise routines, different sleep patterns. I learned what caused water retention and what didn't. I learned the difference between real progress and normal fluctuations. But most importantly, I learned that I could handle seeing reality without falling apart. The scale doesn't lie, but we tell ourselves lies about what the scale means, and those lies keep us stuck in patterns that don't serve us. Your weight is just information. It's not your identity, your worth, your future, your fate. It's just data you can use to make informed decisions about your health and your life. Stop lying to yourself about the information. Start using it to create the reality you actually want. Real talk questions. What lies have you been telling yourself about your weight? Be honest. Are you probably around a number that's 50 pounds less than reality? Do you blame clothing sizes instead of acknowledging weight gain? Do you avoid mirrors, photos, and scales while pretending it's body acceptance? What would change if you got completely honest about your current reality? If you knew your exact weight, exact measurements, exact body fat percentage, what decisions would you make differently? What are you not doing because you're afraid to know the truth? How much mental energy are you spending on avoiding information? Think about all the ways you avoid knowing about your body. Not weighing yourself, not looking in mirrors, not taking photos, buying clothes online. What could you do with that energy if you weren't using it to hide from reality? Reality check exercise. Get honest about your current situation. Weigh yourself right now. Don't wait for Monday. Don't wait until you've eaten better for a week. Don't wait until you deserve to know. Just step on the scale and write down the number. Take measurements. Waist, hips, chest, arms, thighs. Write them down. This isn't punishment. It's data. Just data. Take a photo. Front, side, back. You don't have to show anyone, but you need to see where you're starting from. Write down how you feel physically, energy level, aches and pains, sleep quality, mood. This is your baseline. Now ask yourself, what story have I been telling myself about my body that doesn't match this reality? Scale thoughts makeover. Replace these harmful scale thoughts with helpful ones. Instead of, I'm so fat, make it, this is my starting point. Instead of, this isn't fair, make it, weight fluctuates, trends matter more than daily numbers. Instead of, nothing works for me, make it, I'm learning what works for my body. Instead of, I'm a failure, Make it, I'm collecting data to make better decisions. Instead of, I should weigh less by now, try, I'm making progress at my body's pace. Practice thinking the helpful thought before you step on the scale. Decide ahead of time how you're going to interpret whatever number you see. Truth bomb. The scale isn't your enemy. Your thoughts about the scale are your enemy. The number isn't the problem. Avoiding the number is the problem. You can't manage what you refuse to measure. Stop making the scale mean something about your worth as a human being. Start making it mean something about your commitment to reality-based decision-making. The truth might hurt for a moment, but lies will hurt you for years. So that moment when my scale maxed right the fuck out at 350 and then went up to 44 pounds, I laugh about it now, but in that moment, it was devastating because I knew I wasn't 44 pounds. And you know what? Maybe I had just busted it at the 44-pound mark. Like maybe I weighed even more than that. I don't know. All I know is what I think I know, and that's that I was just under 400 pounds. I knew the scale had gone all the way around because I was so far beyond its capacity. I know it didn't go twice, so that's okay. But I knew I was somewhere close to 400 pounds, and my, old-fashioned analog scale was literally telling me I'd broken it. And the worst part of that was, it wasn't the number. It was just realizing how much energy I'd spent avoiding that number for so long. Like there was almost a bit of relief in it. Immense pain, but almost like a bit of relief. Like, okay, I did it kind of thing, But how many years I'd wasted pretending that not knowing was somehow better than knowing. I don't know. It's really wild. I had convinced myself that avoiding the scale was evolved and enlightening and body positive and all that stuff. And I had this whole philosophical framework built around why I didn't need to know my weight. And, some of it was true because like I said, my worth as a human isn't determined by that number. But I was using that truth also to hide from another one. And that's that I was slowly dying and absolutely refusing to acknowledge it. But that's the thing about half-truths too, right? They're more dangerous than the outright lies because they feel so reasonable. Numbers don't define me is true, but I was using it to mean, therefore, I don't need to know any numbers about my health, which is bullshit. The deja vu pattern that I was running, thinking that not knowing my weight made me enlightened and that made me feel superior to people who weighed themselves. And it made me feel like I was too evolved to give a rat's ass about something as shallow as a number. But that feeling led me to continue avoiding all reality checks about my body, which kept me stuck at almost 400 pounds while pretending I was practicing self-love. Sure. When I finally stepped on the scale and faced reality and everything shifted, not because the number had magical powers, but because I stopped using mental energy to avoid the information and I started using that energy to change my situation. And what I learned about the scale too, over the course of losing over 200 pounds, it's just a tool. It's not good or bad. It's not your friend or your enemy. It's just a piece of equipment that gives you information. And what you do with that information is where your power lives, right? Some people can't handle daily weighing because, they make every fluctuation mean something dramatic about their worth or their progress or their efforts or whatever. If that's you, just weigh weekly or monthly. But weigh, get the data, get the information, use the information. Other people like me do better with daily weighing in because, it teaches you that weight fluctuates naturally. And those fluctuations don't necessarily mean anything except that you're human with a body that retains water sometimes or whatever, just responds to normal everyday things. Daily weighing kind of helped me stop freaking out about the normal fluctuations because I could see the patterns over time as well. The scale thoughts makeover that I kind of included, that's pretty crucial work, I think, because the drama around the scale isn't about the number. It's about what you make the number mean. If you step on the scale thinking this number will tell me if I'm good or bad, successful or failing, worthy or worthless, then yeah, the scale is going to feel like torture. But if you get on the scale and think, this is just information and I'm going to use it to make better decisions, then it's just information. Again, it's just neutral, useful. It's not emotional. It's just that fact. Those lies I was telling myself about my weight too, every single one of them felt more comfortable than the truth in the moment. It felt better to think I was probably around 250 than to know I was pushing 400. It felt better to blame clothing sizes and vanity sizing and all that weird bullshit. And, oh, I must have shrunk my jeans in the washing machine. Sure. It felt better to blame all that bullshit, than to acknowledge that I'd gained weight. And, it felt better to avoid mirrors and pictures than to see what I actually looked like. That comfort was fake, It was postponed discomfort. Every day I avoided reality was another day I stayed stuck where I was. And the longer I stayed stuck, the harder it became to change. A reality check exercise, do it. Seriously. I know it's scary. I know it feels like punishment, but it's not. It's liberation. It really is. It's the difference between living in fantasy land and living in reality. Like, get out of Delulu land there and come join me, please. You can only change reality if you're willing to see it clearly. Get on the scale. Take your measurements, take the photos, write down how you feel, look at all of it. Don't judge yourself. Don't use it to judge yourself. It's just information. That's it. It's tools. Don't make it mean anything about your worth. It's just your starting point. That's all it is. That's it. It's simple enough. That's a fact. And then decide, are you going to keep lying to yourself about where you are, or are you going to use this information to get where you want to go? The scale doesn't lie, but we lie to ourselves about what the scale means, and those lies keep us stuck. So stop lying. Start living in reality. Use the information to create the life that you actually want. Before I go, if you want to discuss this episode with others, if you want to ream me out for anything that I said, there's a Facebook group. Links in the show notes. If you want to support the show, all the content is free. It always will be. I do have production costs, though, that I pay for. If you want to support, I have a coffee account, ko-fi.com, /Unbound podcast, where you can contribute any amount. Once or monthly, I also accept e-transfer or PayPal to avoid fees for me and maybe for you. Reach out for details. Again, contact and support. It's all in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Unbound with Beth Curry. Join the conversation in the Facebook group or visit author.bethcurry.com. Want to support the show? Head to ko-fi.com/Unbound podcast. Until next time, stay unbound.